Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hidden Utah podcast. My name is Rich Markosian. Thanks for joining me today. So we have a very special Halloween episode of the podcast today. We go and visit Salt Lake's most haunted store. And seriously, this you do not want to miss. It's like a vortex for spirits and ghosts. And this we've done a few stories on Pete Marshall over the years, and just an extremely interesting character whose brother died 10 years ago. His brother is still in the store all the time, talks to other spirits, gets mad at them. And now the latest antics from his ghosts are quite interesting. You're going to want to see what they're doing. And I went down there and actually made a little video. So that's coming up at the end. You can, of course, just fast forward to that if that's what you want to see. But we're also going to be doing top 5 Utah headlines. It's something new. Basically what we see, in the news landscape is lots and lots and lots of news, way too much news. So what we thought we would do is specially curate for you what are the most important headlines and what you can take away from these particular headlines. I have a little expertise in this because I've been the editor, publisher of Utah Stories now for 12 years. I've been working in journalism for 18 years in Utah. And I think there's some takeaways that you don't necessarily get from the headlines, the how and the why and kind of the story beneath the story, the hidden part of the story. So I think that's going to be interesting. Of course, a lot of the big headlines are coronavirus, the Utah Jazz have been sold, the newspapers, both of them are going to once a week format. But we'll get into those, and I think it's going to be an interesting show. And so I found a nice little trick getting your kids to rake leaves. I haven't talked about these kids, so we're trying to adopt 3 kids we got from the foster program. And it's been an incredible amount of work, and I haven't talked about it that much because, honestly, I didn't know if we could do it. I mean, it's just we went from 0 to 3. And so we got these kids. We've had them for 6 months, and they're super cute, and they're amazing kids. But at the same time, you realize your inadequacies as a person and as a parent in trying to do something like this. And you realize that also you yell a lot more than you thought you ever would as a parent. You tend to like the best scene in that movie that kind of describes our situation, which is called Instant Family, but was starring Mark Wahlberg, which we're doing in real life, is they're sitting in bed, they're talking about their day, and they're just like, we got to give these kids back. I hate these kids. We just hate them. We got to get rid of them somehow. And then they're like, no, we can't do that. We can't possibly do that. We've found ourselves in that situation where they've just had a terrible day. It's been so hard, and they're just doing everything that gets on your nerves. And that's life. That's reality. So anyway, one of our kids, we've been trying to get him to do more work and more raking, and he has one of those muscle man outfits, and he likes to put that on. And now it's Halloween. He went to school today with his costume on, and I said, hey buddy, you know what you could do to turn those muscles into real muscles is just do rake this whole entire yard. I guarantee you, if you rake this whole yard, those muscles, you won't need to wear that suit anymore. They're going to be real. Your shoulders are going to be huge. And it actually worked. I mean, he's just dying to come home and start raking because he knows by doing hard work, he's going to get built. He's going to get big. And so I'd highly recommend you give that one a try. So, all right. So I will be getting to the podcast. Before I get started, I want to tell you about Green Bikes. So Green Bikes is Salt Lake City's nonprofit bike share that connects employment and residential centers to transit stops and popular entertainment destinations. Green Bikes sets to improve community health, air quality, and increase the existing transit infrastructure. Green Bikes is a local nonprofit public-private partnership between Salt Lake City, the Utah Transit Authority, Select Health, and other private sponsors. To date, Green Bikers have removed 5.8 million vehicle miles from local roads, prevented more than 5 million pounds of CO2 from entering our air, all while burning 76 million calories in the process. That's 267,000 slices of pizza. To learn more about Green Bikes and find out how to take as many rides as you want for less than 20 cents a day, Follow Green Bike on social media at SLC Bike Share or visit greenbikeslc.org. Okay, so let's get started with the headlines. Number one, obviously, coronavirus has surged to the highest rate yet found in Utah. They're starting to say that coronavirus cases have began to will possibly overwhelm the hospitals. They're starting to see the highest number of ICU patients due to COVID. The state's record numbers are now between 1,000 to 1,400 cases per day. Intermountain Healthcare, Dixie Hospital, and others are increasing the amount of overflow space made available. The Salt Lake Tribune reports that Greg Bell, president of the Utah Hospital Association, says that they might need to be rationing care, which means that the oldest and those who are most likely to not survive COVID would not receive the same treatment as the young and more likely to live that are in ICU units. So there's a lot of op-eds in the Tribune right now that are very, very gloomy, that everybody, our state leaders, have done everything wrong, and it's terrible that the shutdown is not further than it has been, that they haven't taken it seriously enough. I really think these op-ed writers need to look at what's happening in the states and the cities where they've really done clamp down, especially New York and California. There are massive numbers of local businesses completely devastated that have closed their doors. You can go to a website and see all the closures of the restaurants in New York. It's like in the thousands. They're just not going to be local restaurants in New York. When tourists go there, it's going to be like, oh, there's Applebee's and there's Cheesecake Factory and Chili's, and oh, what happened to all the great, delis and bars and taverns and, old 30-year-old family-owned restaurants? They're gone. They're going to be gone because of those clampdown efforts, because the government can't step forward and just pay people. We have to stay open. So to say that they've done everything wrong here in Utah, it's just not accurate. And anybody that's an op-ed writer, go talk to a local business owner. Go ask them directly. Say, wouldn't you prefer it if the government came in and shut you down and maybe gave you a check so you could just still live? They'll all say inevitably no. We've been going to actually local restaurants almost every day for the last few weeks, and we talk to these owners, and even if they're just having a small lunch, like the place we went to today, Fab Bistro and Holiday, it was actually super awesome. It's a Thai restaurant. They had a very, very small lunch. They're only serving their food in to-go containers. You have to order the food at the front of the restaurant, but fine, I'd rather see them stick around and make it than not have to eat out of a to-go container. And I think everybody's willing to do what they can to still be able to go out. We went to Main Street last weekend. Main Street was super busy. It was like all these people out supporting the bars and pubs, and I'm sure coronavirus is spreading and young people are getting it at a higher rate than they would otherwise. I'm sure it's not super great that we're all going out again, but it's what we have to do. Life has to go on. We cannot think that we're just going to beat this thing by shuttering everything. So that's my take on it. I mean, if you feel differently, feel free to comment, but that's how I feel. So headline number 2, this actually made national headlines in Fox News. Yak's Cafe in Blanding, Utah has banned their customers from wearing masks. So they basically wrote a big sign on their front door: no gloves, no mask, or do not enter. And they say it's because people take off their masks and they put them on the table, and then their servers are exposed to this like little petri dish of potential, virus. And the virus is they believe it's able to spread more through masks. That's their own belief. But they've actually got a lot of support over this policy. It's Yak's Cafe is in San Juan County. And if you don't know the difference, San Juan County is just south of Grand County. Grand County is where Moab's located. It's very liberal. It's very environmental. San Juan County is very cowboy, very libertarian, very like live and let live. We don't want the government here. Just like this stark contrast between those two counties. And San Juan County's always had like this very libertarian streak to it. So they've just gotten a lot of customer support by putting up that sign. And this Tribune reporter went down there and did the story. And it's just interesting that the Fox News also picked it up. But I definitely do not agree with this no mask wearing policy. I think we are definitely all safer wearing masks. We have to do that, and we have to abide by the law. But they're actually challenging the law, saying, state health department, if you don't like it, what are you going to do? Shut us down? And they're kind of, goading them. So, headline number 3, the Miller family, Larry H. Miller, his legacy. They've owned the Jazz for the past 35 years. They have sold the Utah Jazz franchise to the founders of Qualtrics. Ryan Smith recently sold his tech company for $8 billion. He bought the Utah Jazz for $1.8 billion, according to ESPN. Smith was behind the campaign 5 for the Fight. He has a long-standing relationship with the Miller family, and they trust he will be a great steward of the franchise. He's also purchasing Vivint Smart Home Arena, the Salt Lake Bees, the Utah Stars. Smith is 44 years old. He has about $5 billion to spend. I wonder if he drives a Tesla or a Land Rover. He looks more like a Tesla type of guy. I'd like to have Smith on the show. I met these tech entrepreneurs about probably 10 years ago when I was covering more of the tech scene in Utah. There's 3 that are really young and really have done incredibly well. And the 3 are the Ryan Smith, who started Qualtrics, and then the guy who started Domo and previously owned a company called, I believe, Amateur, that was bought out by Adobe for a couple $1 billion. Domo's going gangbusters. And then the guy who started Vivint, basically by recruiting these a bunch of LDS returned missionaries to go sell alarm systems door to door. He just did incredibly well, and even sort of took Honeywell out of the market. And Vivint, of course, went into the solar arena. And what I learned was Vivint was bought out completely by Blackstone Capital. And so these tech billionaires in Utah, they've done incredibly well, and good for him. I think it's about time the Jazz had a new ownership. I think we've seen since the Karl Malone, Stockton era, they just haven't been willing to build a full team franchise. They've tried to go with this two superstar player model, where the best we had was Carlos Boozer and Darren Williams. That didn't pan out. Those guys both wanted to leave too early. Then we, obviously now we're trying with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. And I think that they're just failing to provide that full team, the full amount of great, outstanding team members they need to build a franchise again, to build the franchise up into, Western Conference Finals. And so they're just not, you can see they just weren't willing to make that investment, because it cannot just be 2 men. If you watch that Michael Jordan documentary, it wasn't until they had, the Bulls were not a championship team until Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant and the amazing point guard, I can't remember his name, Bill Paxson. And it's just like you need all these players in key positions to have a shot at it. So to have a guy who's got $5 billion sitting in his bank account, and he just, after buying the team, I think they've got a much better shot of making a lot of Jazz fans very happy. And he's definitely not moving the team, so I'm very happy about that. So the headline number 4 is there was just one single liquor license available in all of Utah. There were 9 candidates in line to receive it, and a strip club in South Salt Lake called Deuces Wild received it. It looks like they got it completely fair. If Deuces Wild sounds familiar, it's because they've actually been in business a very long time. The Salt Lake Tribune reported that Deuces lost their license over a year ago due to a dispute with the city. The bar owner, Rydell Mitchell, was accused of witness tampering from a 2015 case. And because he was accused of witness tampering, they decided to yank his liquor license. This is kind of nothing new. It's really these, as I've said before, these cities are like little fiefdoms. And if you piss off the city or you give them a reason to be upset with you or they don't like your business, they have so much power, especially if you're a bar, to really decimate your business. And it's really part of the criminal justice reform that I really think needs to happen is this needs to end. The ability of cities to just ruin businesses that they don't like. But luckily, this guy, this owner of Deuces Wild, had enough money to go and hire a good attorney. The attorney got this this overturned. The city's law defines the crime that he committed that justified them taking his liquor license as moral turpitude, and it's basically contains elements of fraud, theft, or intent to do harm to a person or property. So if you have the intent to do harm or you have a moral turpitude problem, the city has the right to take away your bar license, which is arguably the most valuable thing you have as any bar owner in Utah. So I'm glad that he got his liquor license back, and good on him being able to hire an attorney. But I mean, it's just ridiculous. The cities have so much power. So now for our fifth and final headline: Young Living Oils was in hot water. This was not reported. We just found this by looking up Young Living. We've done a few stories on them because they've been found guilty of adulterating their oils in the past, and this was not reported in any news anywhere. We broke this story, and we received a lot of attention after breaking the story. Their whole legal team actually tried to intimidate us into taking the story down. But the truth, an organization called Truth in Advertising Incorporated, or TINA, filed a claim to the Better Business Bureau last year. The case was settled in February. They were investigated for their reps making claims that were not accurate or true. They found all these posts on Facebook, Instagram, that their oils could actually help autistic children think more clearly, was the claim. The reps were claiming that by regularly using their oils, adults and especially children suffering from autism could find benefits from their products. This comes after Young Living has been backpedaling their claims since the inception of their founding. I mean, really, it was founded by a guy who was essentially a very clever snake oil salesman, but in this case, essential oil salesman. Gary D. Young, he's the deceased founder. He claimed the oils helped him reverse essentially being a paraplegic. It also cured his wife's infertility. There's no science or scientific studies backing up any of their claims, and they've been in hot water for years now because their reps, not them as a company, but they'll tell their reps to go and tell everybody, yeah, you got anxiety, depression, migraine. I've heard it for my asthma, for allergies, for anything. Use the oils. I mean, the reps will say they work for literally everything. The company can't make those claims because organizations like Truth in Advertising, Better Business Bureau say you need to back up claims with some kind of evidence. But their reps can say whatever they want. There are 4 million Young Living reps. So they have these massive conventions in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm not saying Young Living is a terrible company. I'm not saying that this is just pure deception, but it really does prey on the most gullible people into buying their products, buying their oils, and it uses inaccurate claims. I mean, so this case went on for a while, and the challenger, who was Truth in Advertising, asserts that there's all sorts of health risks related to their claims. We also found that urinary tract infections can be caused by ingesting the oils. You should not ever be drinking essential oils. We were told by one of the reps we should be drinking it. You should never be drinking it. It's supposed to be a therapeutic that's used for smelling. It's aromatherapy, it's called. So anyway, their claims included it helps with depression, epilepsy, insomnia, anxiety, strep throat, influenza, Alzheimer's, and arthritis. If it helps you and you believe in it, go ahead and keep using it. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. I know there's some legitimacy to aromatherapy, but if somebody's telling you to drink essential oils, you got to just say no, really. Put down the oils, step away, just say no. Okay, so now to our story about Salt Lake Book and Magazine and Pete Marshall, whose nickname is the Governor of Main Street. So located right in the middle of downtown Salt Lake City in the bustling bar district is a shop that's been here for over 35 years. This building, according to Marshall, has been home to gangsters, mobsters, violence, and murder. So according to Marshall, the building, the place where he has his bookshop and his business, is essentially a vortex for spirits from the other side who communicate directly with him and his sister Helen. So lately, the ghosts have been taking on a new form of communication. They've been writing messages on coins and throwing the coins at Pete. And his brother, Skip, I guess has a great sense of humor. He writes all these messages, like he said his brother used to call him homo all the time. So he writes the word homo. What are you doing? And he chucks I mean, I told this story to a few people that ghosts are somehow getting a hold of a Sharpie, writing these messages, and nobody's believing it. I just said, Pete, nobody's buying this. I've told it to people, and it's just so crazy weird. I just find it really hard to believe. While I was in his shop, I did get hit with a couple of coins, but I cannot say that for certain that it's one of them didn't throw it at me. So, I mean, what Pete says is he would be happy to get on a lie detector test and be tested to whether or not he's telling the truth. He said he knows how crazy it sounds. He knows how weird it is, but it's absolutely true and happening. And as you can see from this clip, he has a whole library of things that have been thrown at him by ghosts.
Help me, homo. He's a homo. Please walk to get stronger and better, please. Love, Skip. This is from Skip.
That's on the 12.
Look what he's doing to the coins. Too. They says, Pete, it's feasibly impossible. Where's he getting the Sharpie at? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like all these. I mean, when I held it, and let me tell you the funny part about the whole thing. These are coming out of thin air. There ain't no dollars up there.
No kidding.
No one knows where the dollars are coming from. I mean, these are the reason the 5 pennies are there, because that's what he has, and it's like they put him in a press.
Mm.
I mean,
yeah, that's bizarre. And how would a ghost bend a coin? You just like
that's energy.
Okay, so there you have it. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Please be safe out there, but let your kids go trick-or-treating. Don't be too scared about that. I think candy and trick-or-treating, it's what makes this time of year so fun. Everybody in Utah absolutely loves it. It's got to be the biggest holiday of the year. It eclipses everything else here in Utah. We've got like 20 haunted houses. But go out and be safe and have fun. Thanks for watching. Again, if you like this program, I hope you'll share it with some other friends, and that's really our best way of spreading the word. You can subscribe to the Utah Stories podcast via utahstories.com, or you can click and subscribe over YouTube. We're also on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. But our newsletter is the best thing you can do. It's because we'll just send you one email every week, and anytime you want to unsubscribe or get out of it, we have no problem with that. And let me tell you about our final sponsor. So the Utah Stories program is brought to you in part by Canyon Meadows grass-fed beef. If you have not tried pasture-raised beef, you absolutely need to give it a shot. It does cost more, but it's because the cows spend their entire lives living in pastures, eating thick, rich grass. And if you don't know about regenerative agriculture, you should go check out my documentary I did a few years ago on Canyon Meadows. I went down to their ranch. I filmed it. Their pastures are like 4 or 5 feet tall. It's like not like anything you've ever seen in Utah. Every year their pastures, because they practice regenerative agriculture, their pastures get thicker, taller, more lush. And it's because they practice a system where the cows will mow one small area, and then they're cordoned off, and then the cows move out, and then they allow that area to regrow and give it 3 to 6 months before the cows return to that particular paddock. It's really fascinating. If you know anything about pasture raised beef and Joel Salatin and the whole movement of polyface farms, it's really interesting, and it's really a great way to get your meat and feel good about it, because it's good for the earth, it's good for the environment, and it has delicious flavor. Go visit them at cmrbeef.com and be sure to use offer code Utah Stories, because they're giving podcast listeners a really special discount. All right, thank you so much for watching. This program is brought to you by Connie Lewis, Tyler Bond, and Golda Hukic Markosian. I'll see you next time.